Good afternoon and welcome to the launch of the Stoke-on-Trent City Forum. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for this really exciting event. It's brilliant to see that so many of you are joining us and to see so many familiar faces and names here. I'd like to say that I hope you're all as excited as I am, but frankly, I don't think that that is possible. I'm so excited to be here and welcoming you to this event. This has been an ambition of mine for some time. A forum created for people who care passionately about Stoke-on-Trent and want to help our amazing city become even more amazing. What could be better than that? So it makes me incredibly proud to be here today and seeing the City Forum become a reality. It's a really big achievement and it means so much to see it come to life in this way. I've got a lot more to tell you about it, but first I wanted to tell you about the fantastic lineup we have put together for this webinar and all of the keynote speakers that you'll be hearing from very shortly. It's a massive honour to welcome a government minister to speak at our launch event. I know you will have all heard of Business Minister Nadhim Zahawi in connection with the spectacularly successful rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination programme. He's overseeing one of the biggest and most complex strategies ever undertaken by a British government in peacetime, securing and distributing tens of millions of vaccines to turn the tide on the pandemic and release our communities and businesses from the pain and paralysis of multiple lockdowns. The Minister is also one of the leading government figures dealing with the sector-led economic growth and the delivery of the National Industrial Strategy. I'm so pleased he's been able to fit us into his really busy schedule. Thank you, Minister. We'll be listening closely to his speech for his thoughts on what the Levelling Up agenda means for Stoke-on-Trent, what government is looking for from local partnerships like the City Forum, and what they may be able to do to help us to achieve our ambitions in relation to levelling up. Next up, we'll hear from an illustrious Stokey, Mark Gregory, who's now the Chief Economist for the UK arm of Ernst & Young. Mark will be giving us his take on how the economy may perform, both locally and nationally, as we emerge from the pandemic and into the post-COVID economic landscape, and of course Stoke-on-Trent's prospects for securing sustainable economic growth. Then you're going to hear from property developer Tim Heatley. Tim's development company, Capital & Centric, recently won the contract to redevelop the former Swift House site at the back of Stoke Station. Tim's going to be talking about his role as a social developer, the exciting plans for the goods yard, and how responsible development can transform crumbling heritage buildings into future economic assets. And then I'm really looking forward to hearing from a woman who may well do even more jobs than I do, and there can't be many people on that list. Carol Shanahan is not only chairman of Port Vale Football Club, but she's also founded one of the city's most successful fintech companies, Synectic Solutions. And in her spare time, she devotes incredible amounts of time and energy to her charity work as chairman of the Port Vale Foundation and the founder of the Hub Foundation, which does fantastic work with disadvantaged children in the city and has been one of the leading lights of our response to the pandemic over the past year. Carol's going to give us her highly experienced perspective on partnership and hopefully inspire us to make the City Forum a really successful one. Once we've heard from all the speakers, we've set aside a bit of time for any questions you may have. Unfortunately, the Minister has other engagements and won't be able to stay for this, but the rest of the panel will be here to answer your questions. Then we've set up some workshops to make this afternoon a bit more social and interactive, as well as enabling you to have your say on some of the key elements of our plans for the future of our great city. Please stay with us for the workshops. They're one of the most important elements of this event, and we really do value your views and comments on what we're trying to do. So in terms of the logistics for the breakout sessions, we're all going to be in the webinar part of the event right now, and the Fab PH Productions, who are supporting today's events, will move you into a virtual breakout room for the 40-minute sessions. You'll each be allocated to one of 8 breakout sessions focusing on the 4 priority themes that we've committed to addressing in the Powering Up Stoke-on-Trent City Prospectus. You won't need to do anything. The production company will move us all into our allocated breakout rooms. It might take a few minutes though, so please do bear with us. In each breakout session, there'll be a carefully chosen facilitator who will guide you through the discussion and hopefully generate some good responses and debate. Please do follow the instructions that they give you, raise your hand, be polite, and please do engage with your comments. There may only be time for a few responses to each question, but please make use of the comments sidebar to submit your views. We'll be recording all the comments from each session. Or, afterwards, you can email us your views and comments at stokeprospectuswebinar@stoke.gov.uk. At the end of the breakout sessions, we'll all be automatically brought back into the main event, where we'll get to hear a bit more about what was discussed in each of the sessions of the plenary. Then, before we wrap up, I'd like to share with you a bit more of what we plan to do after today to shape and deliver the plans for achieving what was set out in the Powering Up prospectus. Then we have a brilliant video about the positive changes that are going on in our city, which I hope you'll find inspiring and informative. It's really good, and I think it sums up what we're trying to achieve and where, with your help, the City Forum can make a difference. So, what is the City Forum, and why have we brought you all here today for this event? Back in February, we launched the Powering Up Stoke-on-Trent prospectus. For those of you who weren't here or haven't seen the prospectus, it's a single, shared plan to enable Stoke-on-Trent to benefit from the government's Levelling Up agenda. It's also a powerful message to ministers to let them know that our amazing city is the best place in the UK to deliver levelling up. We've got a really strong and resilient local economy, one of the fastest growing economies outside London before COVID. We'd created an immense 8,000 new jobs in 5 years, and we're creating them here faster than anywhere else in the UK. We bounced back quicker from the last recession than most other places, and we're on track to bounce back again after COVID. We were building a staggering 1,000 new homes a year, almost all of them on brownfield sites. And we built a new business district at Smithfield. We'd even delivered a Hilton hotel and a new apartment complex during the pandemic. With the West Midlands' second city sitting right on the national crossroads between the north-south and east-west corridors, we have fantastic connectivity, whichever way you care to measure it, by road, rail, or full fibre gigabit network. And we've got an incredibly hard-working, loyal workforce with increasing skills levels. And we have one of the most successful enterprise zones in the country in Ceramic Valley, which has continued to pull in investment even during the pandemic. The City Prospectus is making a bold statement to government that our fantastic city is the national test for levelling up. Our challenge to government is, if not here, then where? And if not now, then when? Give us the targeted investment and support, and we will take care of the levelling up. So, we have an unmissable opportunity now to transform our relationship with central government and work as partners to achieve our shared goals. Accelerated economic growth is the big prize on offer if we get this right, along with higher value jobs and skills for our city's workforce. But there are also massive opportunities within levelling up to tackle and eradicate some stubborn inequalities that exist in our city and which continue to blight too many lives and make it harder for our residents to fulfil their potential. If levelling up means anything, then surely it's about making sure that our children and young people have the same chances to do well as those in other parts of the country. We have one of the most loyal, hard-working, creative populations that you will find anywhere, and they deserve to have the same opportunities, support, and aspirations as everyone else in Britain. Levelling up can help us to transform outcomes for our residents and communities, but it won't happen by itself, and it cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to work with government to create the kind of levelling up that works for our amazing city, building on our many strengths and advantages and tackling the problems that hold us back. That's really why we're here today, because we cannot do this alone. We told the government that we want to have a single conversation with them about delivering a single shared plan to transform our city. That means having one plan that we all support and believe in, one plan that we can all commit to delivering. Vis unita fortior, united strength is stronger. There's a reason that we have this motto in the city. It's to remind ourselves that it's okay to celebrate our local identities, but we can accomplish far more when we work together. And it's absolutely true. I've seen that incredible power that strong local partnerships can deliver. During the last year, I've witnessed so many wonderful examples of this city pulling in the same direction and working together to deal with the impacts of the pandemic, protecting our most vulnerable residents, responding rapidly to COVID outbreaks, channeling money and resources to our fantastic voluntary and community organisations, helping our local businesses to protect their staff and navigate lockdown restrictions, supporting the vaccine rollout. The list goes on. Wherever you looked, people and organisations were working together to overcome huge challenges. It was amazing and humbling to see the commitment, the kindness and compassion, and the willingness to break down barriers and find new ways to work more closely together. I saw the fantastic, indomitable spirit of our great city reflected in all these incredible achievements. And I realised that if we could harness this spirit of community, cooperation and civic pride, we might be able to achieve something truly historic for our great city. The challenge for us then, the City Forum, will be to unite the city around a shared vision and to focus all of our combined energy, experience and leadership on fulfilling Stoke-on-Trent's potential as the economic powerhouse of the North West Midlands. The plans to make that happen should belong to the city as a whole and be shaped and driven by people who live and work in Stoke-on-Trent and have our city's best interests at heart. You all represent the views and interests of our vibrant and unique city. Together, we can build a strong collaborative partnership spanning sectors, organisations, geographies and communities. Just as the city came together as one to fight the pandemic, we now need the same resolve, dynamism and community spirit to help Stoke-on-Trent to recover and thrive in the post-COVID landscape. When we launched Powering Up Stoke-on-Trent in February, I said that the City Forum would bring together the most engaged and influential speakers and partners in Stoke-on-Trent to drive this ambitious agenda forwards. That was less than 3 months ago, but even in that short time, things have moved forward and gained momentum. Within days of unveiling the Powering Up prospectus, we'd signed the contract to redevelop the former Swift House site in Stoke to create a brand new urban quarter right next to our main railway station. The Good Yard, as it will be known, will create 180 new homes and a hotel, as well as workspaces, shops and leisure facilities. This hugely creative project is going to transform one of the most important gateways into the city. We're also getting ready to reopen our newly extended Potteries Museum and Art Gallery next week with its stunning new Spitfire Gallery. What a fantastic symbol of our city's incredible heritage and the vital contribution that it's made to our country. And Stoke-on-Trent has been named as one of the top priority places to benefit from the government's Levelling Up funding. These may be the headline examples of the progress we're making, but away from the spotlight, we're constantly striving to make our city as good as it can be for all of our residents and visitors. And strong partnerships are at the heart of this tireless effort. Whether it's forging ahead with plans to improve children's services and transform outcomes for our care leavers, or redesigning the city's health and wellbeing strategy to pinpoint and eradicate the persistent inequalities that continue to blight people's lives, we always work better together. That's why I know the City Forum can be a great success, because I see the strength of our partnerships every day and how many of the plans set out in the prospectus are already starting to be delivered. And it looks as though the government also sees the transformative power of our City Forum. Not only have we got one of the country's most high-profile ministers speaking at this launch, but the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, has praised the City Forum as an excellent example of local collaboration to drive positive change. The Chancellor said that strong local partnerships between local authorities, businesses and other local stakeholders are crucial to delivering the government's plans to spread opportunity and level up the United Kingdom. In other words, Stoke-on-Trent is doing exactly what the Chancellor of the Exchequer wants to see places doing to help deliver levelling up. The Chancellor's glowing assessment of the City Forum shows that we're attracting attention at the very heart of government. Make no mistake, the government is watching this space. Ministers will want to see how we use the collaborative power and influence of this forum and whether we'll be a credible partner to help achieve their and our levelling up ambitions. So my challenge to you as we embark on this incredible journey today is to think about what you want your City Forum to be and how you think it can help make levelling up happen here. Because it's all starting to come together already. The curtain's going up, and when the spotlights come on, this amazing city is going to be centre stage for levelling up. As I said earlier, if not Stoke-on-Trent, then where? If not now, then when? What we do next will have huge implications for the future of this brilliant city of ours. This is our time. This is about our plan for our city's future. I hope you'll join me in helping to make it happen, and I look forward to working with all of you as we set about unleashing the awesome potential of our great city together. And now, I'm going to be the first to admit that I'm very passionate about our city and its potential, and you might have noticed. But I'm certainly not alone in that, and I hope you will feel some of the passion and excitement too, if you don't already, when we hear from our incredible lineup of keynote speakers this afternoon. We're so grateful that they've given their time and commitment to join us today and to share their valuable experiences and insights with us as we embark on this momentous journey. I'm particularly honoured to welcome Nadhim Zahawi MP, the Minister for Business and Industry and the Minister for Vaccine Deployment, who's taken time out of his extremely busy schedule to speak to us from Westminster. Good afternoon, Minister, and welcome to the launch of the Stoke-on-Trent City Forum.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It really is fantastic to have been invited to speak at the Stoke-on-Trent City Forum, especially obviously we have step 3 on Monday and a big step in the Prime Minister's roadmap to recovery. Challenges every single day, but nevertheless, we have a plan and a clear plan. And this great city can begin to resume its economic transformation. I would like to pay tribute to you, Abby, for the incredible work you're doing as leader of Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and indeed your members of Parliament, Jack Brereton, Jonathan Gullis, and of course, Joe Gideon, for their tireless, I have to tell you, work towards levelling up this city. But I guess the big question for all of us is, what is levelling up and what does it mean for Stoke? Levelling up is the embodiment of I think the British nation's aspiration. It's looking at a proud city like Stoke and knowing it has the potential to be a high wage, high productivity hub in the centre of England. And I'm delighted that we have made that commitment, that we are committed as a government to working with communities which have felt ignored, felt let down at times, to give them a much greater share of investment and more autonomy over how these investments are made. And I think because of this commitment, this Conservative government has established the Shared Prosperity Fund, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. It's worth about £1.5 billion, of course, as well as the 3.6 billion Towns Fund. We're already seeing what can be achieved through targeted investment and collaboration with local communities. Stoke is one of the fastest growing economies in England, with a, I think, 17.1% increase in GVA per capita between 2015 and 2018, and local annual wage growth of 11.7% in that same period. Despite, of course, these improvements, I know there's still plenty of potential for growth, plenty of potential to be unleashed in Stoke with the success of the vaccine rollout and over 1 in 3 adults now having had both of their jabs, their second dose, as well as their first dose. Towns and cities across the country are once again making plans for how they can level up. And in Stoke specifically, I know you have set 4 priorities as part of your levelling up agenda in coordination with us in government. And they are, of course, transport, economic development, education and skills, health and productivity. And we share those priorities. And that's a point that I just want to sort of land with you today. On transport, we have committed £27 billion of investment into our road network, supporting roughly about 64,000 jobs, with about 11 billion going towards maintaining and replacing existing parts of the road system. We're also committing to obviously making that big investment in building HS2, which has the potential to connect cities like Stoke to hubs in both the north and south of England, such as Leeds and London, obviously. The economic development side. So economic development is, of course, vital as we continue to level up our towns and cities across the country. Our exit from the European Union means we have a number of new tools to drive economic development and growth. We can negotiate free trade deals with the fastest growing, most dynamic economies in the world, which really means that from Houston to Hanoi, people will be buying British. It also has allowed us to decide how we target the £1.5 billion going into the UK SPF, which was previously channeled through the EU. Stoke stands to benefit from this increased investment brought into the country through the new free ports, as well as the £16.9 million for the just north of Stoke itself. There are long-term opportunities as well for much greater government investment in Stoke and the surrounding areas in the future, through obviously the establishment of the United Kingdom's infrastructure bank. Didn't get many headlines, but I think is an incredibly exciting moment. It is going to be headquartered in Leeds. The UK Infrastructure Bank will work across government and the private sector to deliver sustained investment in the growth-creating potential of communities like Stoke. On education and skills, as we have announced in the Queen's speech this week on Tuesday, we have, I think, will be delivering what I think is probably the most exciting, certainly for me. I used to be, many years ago, David Cameron's apprenticeship czar, where I was responsible for the deployment of the apprenticeship levy. But announcing the life skills guarantee is really a huge moment for the skills agenda in our country. The Prime Minister's scheme will create a post-16 and adult education training system that will provide people with the skill need to obtain those high wages I spoke about earlier, and encourage top employers to move to our cities and towns because the skills will be there for them. On health and productivity, we also recognize that a productive country is one that is happy and has to be healthy. And I'm pleased that Stoke-on-Trent City Council have pledged to invest in a health and work programme to address long-term unemployment through ill health, and the government has itself announced in excess of £17 million to improve mental health and well-being support in schools and colleges to maximise student potential and, of course, the long-term success that they deserve. I think we've seen in the most recent elections, there are two futures for the United Kingdom. There's Labour, who have taken places like Stoke-on-Trent for granted, talking down its people and willing to settle for less. And there's the Conservative future, with levelled up, state-of-the-art infrastructure, increasing connectivity, levelling up education, where people, regardless of their age or their background, have the chance to build the skills that they will need to succeed. Levelling up hospitals, levelling up police stations, levelling up our high streets, a Conservative future where we build back better. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Minister, for taking the time out of your really busy schedule to join us today. We really appreciate that. And of course, absolutely delighted to hear that the government supports our priorities within our Stoke-on-Trent prospectus. We're looking forward to engaging with you more over the coming weeks and months. Our next speaker today is illustrious Stokey, Mark Gregory, who is the Chief Economist of the UK arm of Ernst & Young. Mark is always really engaging in these presentations, and certainly I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about the economic prospects of our fantastic city. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Abby, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen just to give you a few slides that hopefully will give you some context of where we are. So, like Abby, I'm really excited to be here today. In fact, I think I am more excited than Abby. I spend most of my time in London, not in Stoke. So actually, for me, getting involved in things with the city has an extra benefit. So what I'm going to talk about is, as you can see there, the title is "Shot in the Arm," which is an economist attempted to joke with the vaccination program. In the last summer, I was part of the COVID recovery task force, actually headed by Minister Zahawi, and I was thinking as he was talking, I feel he's had a bit more of a contribution to the recovery than me, but you kind of do what you can on that. But shot in the arm is a good way of describing how the vaccination program has really changed our economic prospects. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've got to where we are, a lot more then on the context of really where we might be heading towards, what that means in the short term, and then I'll spend some time on how I think the economy is changing and really what opportunities that makes or creates for Stoke-on-Trent, and really looking forward to talking about that throughout the rest of the afternoon. As Abby knows, I could talk about this stuff for hours, so do feel free to ask questions or follow up with me. I'm very happy to talk about these things. So if we look at where we've come from over the last year, this is like nothing else. The word I've kept finding myself using was unprecedented, but it really is like an economic and social experience we've never been through before. If you look at that chart on the left, which shows you the movement in gross value added, so basically GDP to all intents and purposes, month by month since last March, normally we get like 0.2% above or below the line in a monthly shift, and we just saw numbers we'd never seen before, nearly 20% decline in the economy last April, and then the recovery. And I think at the start of the pandemic, I did an event with the Claybody Theatre. The most exciting bit for me was one of the scenes talked about Basil Hayward playing for Port Vale, and Basil was really important in helping me as I was playing football when I was younger. But at the end, we talked about what it meant, how the play related to today, and I talked about how fragile the economy and society had been, what a shock it was. But actually, we've been pretty resilient, and particularly if you look at the size of those blocks towards the end of the period, even when we've been into future lockdowns, we've been able to cope much better than at the start. So we have become more resilient, we've become more innovative and really learned how to cope. And I think that's important because that gives us something to build on for the future. We should be reasonably confident we won't face as big a shock as we have done, but also some of the lessons we've learned in the health service, in the logistics industry, we ought to be able to apply those to make ourselves more productive. The other thing from that chart on the left is the spike we saw last summer. And I do believe, and I think the consensus amongst economists is, we have some pent-up demand that will provide us with a platform going forward. And I think it's really important as we move into better times, we really start to build for the future, which is why the Powering Up City Forum is so important. And actually, I was so pleased when I first heard about it, because we're right at the front of this recovery, and to get ahead is important for places like Stoke-on-Trent. We don't want to be playing catch up. So we are ahead of the curve. And at least before I started speaking, I can tell you, based on several other initiatives I tend to get involved in, this is the best one that I've come across. So I guess I'm setting myself up to fail there, but we really do want to take this opportunity. But there are challenges, and that chart on the right gives you a sense of that. The highest borrowing by government since the Second World War as a share of GDP. That is not an insignificant challenge. And we will have to be mindful of, government can only do so much for the economy as we move forward. And again, why the forum is so important, because it is very much about working with government, but really leveraging the assets of the city. And, I think I've said this to Abby on many occasions, but ultimately you do have to look after yourselves. And I think taking the initiative in this way is really important in the context in which we find ourselves. That's a little bit of history. Looking forward, this is a more positive story than we could have imagined sort of 3, 4, 6 months ago. And there's few reasons for that, but it does look as though where we are today, we will get out of the pandemic with the economy less scarred than we thought might be the case, less damage than we expected. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that the labour market has performed much better than we hoped for. So with the furlough scheme and with the way we have adapted, as I talked about on that first slide, unemployment so far been much less than we feared. The yellow line on that chart, the ILO number, that's the employment rate that you hear about in the press when the numbers come out every month. The claimant count is more the people on universal credit, and that tends to shift. People can still be in work but qualify for credit, so it's a bit more of a volatile measure. But if we take that yellow measure, we now think unemployment might peak at 5.5% as furlough unwinds this year. In June, the consensus amongst economists in the UK was that number could be 9 or 9.5%. What that means is we've protected 1.5 million jobs between what we thought was the worst case and what looks likely. And that's really important. Obviously, it's important for people's daily lives, but when people are out of work, they lose their skills atrophy. So actually, we've protected our skills base and our capabilities, which positions us well going forward. And secondly, we've also got the Chancellor with what I think is a really important initiative, which is allowing businesses to offset 130% of their capital spend for the next 2 years against profitability taxes. That really ought to encourage a surge in investment. And where we have lost investment in the pandemic, again, hopefully we can catch that up and avoid too much lasting damage to the economy. And the final bit of this story is the households in the pandemic have saved a lot more than in the past. So you can see in the chart there, normally we save about 10% of our income as a country. At the height of the pandemic, we were saving 25%. And that was because partly people were nervous and so weren't spending as they might have done, but also it was physically impossible to spend on some of the things we had done. And despite the efforts of my wife and semi-adult children to buy as much of that was available online as they could, as a country, we couldn't spend at the rate we did. And what that means is we now have about £200 billion of extra savings than we would have in a normal year. And that's about 10% of the UK economy in total. So it's a huge amount. So as some of that money gets released, that's when I talked about the pent-up demand. That creates the growth platform that gives us an opportunity to move forward in a way we didn't expect. And what that means is that we think the economy might grow by 7% this year and 5% next year. And you can see when you look at the garishly coloured lines there, that is way ahead the normal rate of growth of the economy, and means we will catch up what we lost, the kind of 10% fall in the economy last year. And so what that does is gives us a platform. People will feel more confident, businesses will start to invest, and that's really where applying the opportunity from the City Forum becomes very important. As support is withdrawn, yes, there will be fiscal policy challenges. The Chancellor has talked about higher taxes, and we still do need to address many of the challenges in health and social care. But as the Minister talked about there, the government does have a plan for growth. There are schemes in place around innovation, more R&D funding around the country, levelling up that we talked about in a bit of detail there. Also the green recovery, how we can exploit the opportunities as we move towards net zero by 2050, and Global Britain. So really building up our trading capability again. And I think take the platform of faster growth and these opportunities where government is looking to support the economy moving forward, and think about how we can position the city in those. That would be my challenge for this afternoon. And as we look a bit more long term and beyond that short term, I just wanted to share with you two bits of research that Ernst & Young has been carrying out through the pandemic. On the left is a survey we've been doing every month of around 1,000 households and consumers And on the right is a survey we've just done of 500 investors across Europe to get their sense of where things are going. And I think this is really important. And actually, the City Forum fits really well into this. If we take what's happening with consumers, the pandemic, it kind of took us backwards and also moved us forwards, if that isn't a contradiction in terms. So if we think of changes that accelerated, certainly the move online, as you can see there, people expecting their shopping behaviours will change in future, but also how they use transport. And some real challenges in there. In China, for example, as the recovery started, people were much more likely to take their own cars than use public transport because they were scared of coronavirus. So there are some changes there we have to think about, and the way that people work. Sort of 33% of people expect to work differently in future. Now, of the UK working population, probably about half could work remotely or flexibly some of the time. The rest have jobs that make that difficult. So a good share do want to do, but I don't think we should assume that cities are going to die in probably the way we thought about some months ago. But they will change, and particularly when you link into that shopping piece, high streets are going to be different and city centres are going to be different. But again, we have the chance in Stoke-on-Trent to really think about how across the towns and the city, we really make that model work for us. But there was also a bit of looking backwards, and you can see there people thinking about they're going to socialise differently, value their time with their families more aware of their health maybe and what they eat, and that will be a difference as well. So I think as we start to really engage on how we want the city to move forward, we should think about how we sit against this agenda. And I think you saw with the Centre for Cities report, if you read that on the city, the strength of the logistics sector means Stoke-on-Trent is well positioned for the online world. We really have some economic opportunities there. But I think there's probably two other plays that we can position the city with. Firstly, this focus on socialising, on family, on health, on our well-being. Stoke's offer in that space is really compelling. And actually, sitting as I am today in London, some of those things like time with family, I have to be in Stoke for at least part of my attempts to do that. Equally, I'm aware when I come to the city how close we are to the countryside, how easy it is to get around the city. So I think there is a compelling offer there in terms of this future society that people want. And the other thing I would sort of stress is the ability to operate virtually as we are today. So suddenly the physical world isn't necessarily the constraint it was. You don't have to be in London to be working in the city anymore. And again, think of the city, think of certainly Staffs University with its digital hub in London, as well as its campus in Stoke-on-Trent. And actually, we may be well positioned as a city to play in that virtual space. And that may mean actually some of the businesses we want to engage with are located in London or in Edinburgh, have their headquarters there. But actually, as they expand, as they want to get access to skills and talent, we have the opportunity to do that, bring them to Stoke-on-Trent without them necessarily physically shifting all of their operations. So it is a different model, I would say. And then looking to the right-hand side, and this is, as I said, 500 global investors. This hasn't actually been published yet, so it's a snippet of that. And if you share it, I'll probably have to kill you. But what are businesses saying about this future economy? And what strikes me there is, look at the top there, quality of health system now amongst 500 international investors is the theme that's top of their list in terms of their future investment. We're going to talk about health later today, but you can see it is critical, and it is this link about how people need to be healthy, both physically and mentally, to be at their most productive. And if we get that wrong, we get into a downward spiral where people fall out of work and fall out of the system. Then sustainability and climate change, again, the city and its surroundings have a real opportunity in that space, and the digital sectors as well. And I've talked already about technology. So one of the challenges then is to think about how we get the skills that fit with this. So making sure that the skills we're developing in the city really fit with where businesses are going as well. And I think what's really nice is what people want on the left-hand side and what businesses want are actually coming together in a way we haven't seen before. So I am they're much more optimistic than I've been for a long time. And ultimately, economics is local, and people live and work in places, and you do have to fix these things in your local environment. I remember working with Abby on the City of Culture bid, and one of the points in that process, there was an event in London where people were going to go and make pottery and do things, and I said to people in the office, I'm just so bad at making pottery, and I realized they were looking at me strangely and said, how do you know that? And I said, well, didn't you do it at school? And they all looked a bit strange, and actually I thought about it a bit, and I suspect every kid like me growing up in the 70s and 80s would have done pottery in art at school, because actually that was the kind of academy system, to take a footballing analogy, where if you found people who were talented, actually the careers service is going to channel you through into the pottery industry. It's kind of logical, makes a lot of sense. And I think in some ways, it's that kind of logic we have to find again. And that's where initiatives like the Hub Foundation fit into this economic story in a very important way. I remember Carol sent me a message saying, we should talk, which is kind of one of those things where, you haven't really got any option in it. You should go and see her. And I did. And she talked to me about the Hub Foundation in its early stage. And I went away thinking, blimey, that's incredible. But is she mad? And clearly, as history has shown us, she was far from mad, and it's up and running. But facilities like the Hub, are a chance to actually connect these things. So when people bring their kids, or their kids are in the centres, you can actually talk to them about their health. You can diagnose if there are early maybe risks or problems in the city, and you can also think about preventative and proactive sort of ways of engaging people and explaining to them things they can do. You can also think about skills in that environment, both the young people who are there, but also their parents, because a big part of this story is going to be retraining people for this new economy. But again, you have these contact points where we can engage, and we can also talk to people about what challenges they might face in terms of their economic and social life. If you look at Greater Manchester, one of the big pushes on trying to get more control of the bus network has been that it was pretty clear that buses go to the places where people are already in work, and to the offices and factories where they already are established. Actually, often what you want with the bus network is to go to the places where people are out of work, or to where new sites might be developing. And again, when you have opportunities like the Hub Foundation to engage with people, talk about what challenges they face, it's another way of knitting all of this together. So I do think in a community like Stoke-on-Trent, you have a chance to do this in a way that national government can only do to a certain extent. And my last stat of the day, which actually I think for me at least is the most interesting, is I was just playing around with some numbers this morning, and I found out that the productivity of the IT sector in Stoke-on-Trent is about 20% better than of the UK average. And at first I was like, blimey, have I got my numbers wrong, which often happens. But actually you think, Abby's talked about Synetics, you have Bet365, you have the universities with their digital capabilities. It shouldn't be that surprising. But I think as we're thinking about this new economy, we shouldn't be scared of it as Stoke-on-Trent. Actually, we can play in it. We've really got some important building blocks. And that's why today is so important. So I'm going to stop there. I'm obviously, as you can see, happy to talk about this forever, and to engage where I can help. I am very keen to come and stay in the Hilton at some point. I haven't yet made that. So ever since Abby told me that was in the stocks, that's been on my list. So whenever you think I can help, please do ask. And I'll stop at that.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that. A really interesting insight there into what we can expect moving forward. Now, Mark will be joining us shortly to be part of our panel, so please do have your questions ready. Now, our next guest is a new friend of Stoke-on-Trent. Now, I'm going to say now, he's got a bit of a different accent, but I know he's working on sounding a bit more like me and a bit less like somebody who's come from Manchester. He's tried oatcakes, he loves them. He even told me a few weeks ago that he's thinking that he might actually move here to Stoke-on-Trent, but I'm sure we won't hold him to that. I'm going to introduce now Tim Heatley from Capital & Centric to tell us a little bit about what he does and what he's looking forward to doing in Stoke-on-Trent. Tim, over to you.
Abby, thanks very much, and thank you everyone for having me along today. It's an honour and a pleasure. So as you've heard, I'm from Capital & Centric. And in case you forget, or in case I forget, in fact, I wear it on my T-shirt, as my kids often take the mickey out of me for doing that. And yeah, I'm not from Stoke-on-Trent, but I am a massive fan of it. And there's lots of reasons for that. And I'm a relatively recent convert and a relatively recent massive fan of it. It's only in the past couple of years that I became a fan. And it's not because of property. I'm a property developer and I'm a social impact developer, and I'll explain a little bit more about what that means in a second. But it's because of the people. Yes, it's got a really strong and resilient economy, and that's a great thing for property. Yes, it's got really good connectivity as well. That's fantastic. It's got lots of momentum already. Lots of improvements are taking place. You already see the huge amount of change that's happening in and around Stoke-on-Trent, and as you've heard, great access to well-educated students and talent as well. But when I walked around Stoke, that pride and that passion in the place really came across, and that's a really good foundations for us to be able to work from. So you've heard about the government's perspective, and then the economic perspective as well, and on a very macro scale. So how does all that transfer down into a very micro scale into one particular project and site? So I'm going to talk to you about the goods yard, which is just next to the train station, Stoke-on-Trent. And I think the easiest way to explain why capital centric and also and why why we're proposing to do what we do is actually talk to you about some of the other things that we've done, so that you can understand some of those ideas and thoughts and some of the lessons learned that we want to bring into the goods yard project. So firstly, I'll start off by explaining what a social impact developer is, and on what we do and why we do it. Well, for us, everything we do has to have a positive social impact on the location or the place or the space in which we develop, and that takes a few different forms. So everything we do is super energy efficient. That's a key factor. We do a lot of conservation and preservation of listed and historic buildings as well. So that's another key thing. Typically, where we create residential spaces, we will ban the fractional sale to buy-to-let investors. We would prefer to sell them to owner-occupiers, because we think the beneficiaries of regeneration should be the people that are going to live there as well. We create a lot of employment space and workspace as well, and they are often in places of high unemployment and worklessness. And by that, I don't mean just construction work. I mean long-term, high-quality, well-paid jobs, and that's really important for us to be able to attract those businesses to an area that we're developing as well. So that's another key factor. I suppose last, if I've not missed any off, is exemplary and award-winning architecture, but that's democratically accessible. So we don't just want to create places that have elite architecture that is unaffordable and unobtainable. We want to ensure that everybody can access and enjoy that sort of architecture as well. So there's some of the key things that we're looking for when we're looking to invest and develop in any location. So I'll just talk to you about some of our other projects, and hopefully you can see what I mean by that. So let me just. It looks like my presentation's halfway through, so I'll try and whiz back a little bit. It starts at Tempest, so I'll go back only a couple through. So this is Bunker Building. This is a building that we bought in Liverpool City region, and we're in Sheffield City region. We're in the Liverpool City region, obviously Manchester City region, and now great to be involved in Stoke-on-Trent as well. And so this was one of our first projects, and we took a place that was derelict and unloved, and we turned it into an award-winning HQ for digital and tech businesses. And we were told at the time it'll never work. That building can never be converted, and it'll look horrendous. And yet that won an RIBA award for architecture. And again, super energy efficient space, and is full, and it's been full ever since. And what we do as well, we developed this 7 years ago now, and we still own it, and we still look after it, and we still pamper it a little bit. And that's important for us. We're not a smash and grab developer. We like to invest and stick around and continue to improve and refine. And that's testament to that as well. So another great example, the Tempest building. Again, this one's in Liverpool, and we created a co-working space throughout the buildings. We've been able to incubate and create lots of big businesses that have grown out of this space, and that should always be the ambition, really, for businesses to grow so much that we can no longer physically accommodate them in our space as well. And here we have, you turn up for the property, but you stay because of the people, because we have lots of events and classes. We have speed networking, and we have pizza Thursdays and beer Fridays, and we have yoga classes and Pilates, and we have thought leadership seminars and so on, as a way to get the community to interact with each other. So that recurring theme you'll find is with us is community and property, community and people, not property. Found it in Salford, a difficult location actually when we started to do it, a workspace, and here we have design, creative industries. We've got online fashion businesses, and a whole host of different businesses that interact and share space with each other as well. And that was a fairly pioneering project in a difficult location to deliver. Actually, what it's done is really changed that area and created a ripple effect for more creative industries to be based in and around that part of Salford. Campus in Manchester, this is one of our biggest projects. This has got a £250 million value. And as you can see, this is focused on residential. There's 500 homes here. We're keeping all of those at the moment, so we're going to keep ownership of all of them and rent them out and manage them and look after them carefully and look after the residents that live there. But there's also cafe bars, delis, gyms, co-working spaces, and all sorts of other spaces that are accessible not just to the residents but to the general public. This is in the heart of Manchester city centre, and it's a combination of listed buildings and 1960s buildings and new buildings as well. And we've got some conservation listed buildings to restore and repurpose at Goods Yard, and we're really good at that. So at any one time we have several conservation buildings undergoing restoration and conversion. Another good example of that is this. This is Crusader Mill in Manchester, behind Piccadilly train station. And if any of you saw Manktopia, which was a documentary I took part in on BBC2 last year, this featured quite heavily. Challenging building, really difficult to restore, and it's taken a long time, but it's been worth the effort. And again, we found investors, so the only people that live there are people who bought there themselves, a full owner-occupier community. But a big emphasis on green, a big emphasis on, there are no car parking spaces here at all, in fact, focusing on that courtyard space, that communal space, and creating interactions with the residents as they move around that space as well. That was a really important thing to do. So you get to know your neighbours and you get to meet new friends, hopefully friends that you'll have for the rest of your life, and that to us is a really important feature. And the location where this is was known as the Red Light District, and again at the time people said, you must be mad, no one wants to live there, why on earth would you want to buy a home there? But actually we're delighted to say that lots of people have taken our perspective on this, which is actually, this area is going to change and improve and so on. So it's been an incredible success so far. Just next door to that, in fact, is the Phoenix project, which is a new build, and again using that industrial aesthetic, which is again what we want to bring to Stoke-on-Trent, where we have exposed concrete ceilings with exposed surfaces, but with a nice warm timber floor, and the steel beams running through the building that you can see on the top of the centre image there. Big glass, big glazing, lots of lights, and tall ceilings and big space. That's really important. We think too many apartments are built pokey and small and uncomfortable. So again, this is the kind of thing that we want to do at the Goods Yard. Talbot Mill in Manchester, again, a conversion, some new build, bringing a new canal inlet. And again, that's a feature that we have at the Goods Yard as well in Stoke-on-Trent. So we've got, we're going to create Stoke-on-Trent. I'm going to show you some plans and images later, whereby we create connectivity to the canal, to the waterfront, by creating pontoons and bringing activity and life down at the canal level as well, so you can start to interact with the water. It's a great feature, but as so many other cities as well have failed to do in the past, it hasn't celebrated that canal linkages. So we're really keen to do that at the Goods Yard. And again, this is Eyewitness, and this is in Sheffield, and these buildings range from the 50s right the way back to the 1800s as well. So, and there's some new build as well, and again, focus on green space, courtyards, public realm, creating reasons to interact. But also, interestingly, this is in a pioneering part of the city, shall we say, in Sheffield, which is basically means nobody wants to live there at the minute. So what we've got to do is we've got to create the cafe bars and the delis and the workspaces that are going to attract people to live there. And not just apartments either. Here we have, a whole collection of townhouses right the way through to one bedrooms and studio homes, as well as the commercial space. So a really eclectic mix of spaces and places to ensure that there's lots of reasons to go there. And this is a hotel that we did in Manchester, 166-room hotel, a huge new atrium that we created in the middle of it. Nice big apartments, as you can see. So it's an apart hotel. So build it as an apartment, but they're rented as hotel spaces. Big co-working space on the ground floor. We've got meeting rooms that are bookable, all plug and play, presentation screens. We've got a mini cine, which is a small cinema in the space as well, and a gym, and a restaurant, and a cafe bar, and a deli, and a host of other interesting features as well. And the idea there is to constantly have different things popping up and changing and evolving to constantly give you a reason to come back. And again, we thought we could take some of that learning and knowledge and bring it to the Goods Yard, and find a way of harnessing new reasons for people to turn up and to hop on the train or to walk around the corner and visit. And then this is back in Piccadilly. This is just next to the Crusader Mill that I spoke about earlier, in that pioneering part of the city. And we're just halfway through construction of this hotel, 275 bedroom hotel. And really that's a testament to the success of the previous phase of the project as well in Piccadilly East. And people wouldn't have said that you could deliver a building of that quality and of that scale in this location a couple of years ago. But we've proven that you can. We're great at creating demand, creating a buzz, using exemplary architecture to do that. Lots of green and energy efficiency, as you can see. That's become dubbed the Jenga building, and is often voted as, even though it's incomplete, as the most anticipated, most excited scheme that most of the architects in the Northwest talk about. So we're really proud of that. But then in the suburbs, in the foothills of the South Pennines, we've got neighbourhood in Rochdale. And again, this is an entirely build to rent community, so people will rent here, and we have 1-bedroom houses right the way through to 3-bedroom houses, and houses high density but not high rise. So we put the gardens on the roof, and we can get almost twice the density that you can achieve on a brownfield site. And Stoke-on-Trent do that brilliantly. You know, they use brownfield sites really efficiently, and the housing output is phenomenal. And that really excited us. You know, they got that vision about creating homes, creating new places, creating new communities. And what really was compelling for us is how good they are at partnerships and understanding the need to collaborate and to have a shared vision and to have ambition. And so that really comes across when we spoke to the team at Stoke-on-Trent as well. And so these sorts of projects that want to change the perception of an area and really shift the dial in terms of quality and aesthetic was really important. But again, in here, we have a whole spectrum of different homes that are accessible and are affordable. And for us, it's really important in our different projects to have not just homes for the 25 to 35-year-olds. It's right the way through. You know, we want families to be there, and right the way through to care for the elderly as well, because we think that there's probably no point in building a box for them, putting them out in a field somewhere in one of these care homes. We think in the communities where they should be, cared for by other people in that community, and that's what makes a place dynamic. It avoids a monoculture. It makes it interesting, and that's what is attractive about a city, is that diversity of cultures and backgrounds and age groups and so on. And here's another great example of how we create demand. So this is a building that's an existing building that we're converting into film and television studios. There's 2 new studios to the left of the screen, just out of shot, that are currently under construction now. And we brought Pinewood Film Studios. We've not brought Pinewood Film Studios, actually. We have bought Twickenham Film Studios up from Twickenham, in fact. And they're going to have their new headquarters in Liverpool all the way up from London. And also we're co-locating a higher education provider in here as well, which is Liverpool John Moores University, to create a 300,000+ square foot facility where the students can learn from the architect, from the film producers and the directors and the actors and the stage set people and everybody else, the post-production facilities, so they can share knowledge, they can share staff, resource, materials, and so on. It's a really great way, we think, for the next generation of students to learn. And I think that's again that kind of learning that we want to bring to the goods yard. More of the same, similar project, in suburbs such as Stockport as well. So, but it's not just about property for us, it's about the bigger picture. So Regeneration Brainery is a non-profit that we started in 2017, and it's an academy to get people from diverse and disadvantaged backgrounds into the built environment sector to be an interior designer, a landscape architect, an engineer, an agent, a surveyor. A whole host of different careers are available in the built environment sector. What started out as a seed of an idea has grown massively. We've since been joined and supported by Homes England as well, the government agency for housing, and also we're supported by Lloyds Bank as well. And we now mentor over 100 young adults in the UK every year, and get them into work into the built environment sector as well. And we've expanded out of Manchester, where we started it, into Bristol, into Birmingham, into London, up to Sheffield, and we'd love to bring it to Stoke-on-Trent as well. And so we're making plans from that. And any location where we develop and invest, we're keen to assist with whatever challenges that they have. And in Manchester, in particular Greater Manchester, we have a challenge around homelessness. And so we have various initiatives underway. One of the things we did is we repurposed a former tour bus and turned it into a homeless shelter. And we're now building 40 one-bedroom apartments as well, which is the evolution of the tour bus, to provide accommodation for people who find themselves at risk of homelessness or are experiencing homelessness at the minute. And again, another example, during the COVID emergency, we took one of our buildings and we repurposed it, and we were delighted to get hundreds of thousands of donations from businesses to redistribute that across Greater Manchester to people that needed it. We do a lot of events and gigs and concerts, and using art and music and food and entertainment to get people into a place to reconsider how that could be in the future. Should we regenerate it and develop it as well? So meanwhile uses, pop-up spaces, and so on are a great way of doing that. And again, that's what you'll see more of that at the Goods Yard. So what is the Goods Yard? What do we plan to do? So here it is, just next to Stoke-on-Trent train station. It looks a little bit like that at the minute in terms of sketch formats, and it's that red line that you can see around it is the entirety of the site. It's a great site in a really prominent location, not without its challenges. And what you've got is a conservation building that sits kind of just below ground there, just below ground level. The top of the mill warehouse, if you like, top of the warehouse has been demolished, but what remains is the lower warehouse beneath. And you can see some images there of what it looks like. So when I got taken to the site to have a look at it, I thought, what on earth is this? And then when you go down into the basement, you see this amazing brick vaulted ceilings. That's when I really started to get excited. As a layout of what it is we're proposing to do, which is to bring workspace into the Goods Yard. We want to have activity throughout the day and night. So we're gonna have cafe, bars, restaurants, co-working, deli space. We say retail unit. I mean, crikey, who needs more retail at the minute? So it says retail, but actually that can be a whole host of things. It can be a bike shop mixed in with a coffee store. It can be a plant shop. It could be a whole host of. But we want local businesses to give them. We want to give them a leg up and get them, help them to amplify their business and grow their business a bit. And we want to assist them with that. And we're going to create space at a rent that's an affordable rent that allows them to kind of take the next step up. So there's going to be homes here, a couple of hundred homes. As well, and also we're proposing to create a hotel as well on the back of the amazing success of the Hilton. And so you can see how it's split into residential block at the top, a hotel to the right, and the pavilion building, which is above the warehouse beneath, which is a listed conservation building. And then through the middle is a really important landscaped space, which can be used for a series of events throughout the year. No matter what the weather. So we're going to put power, provision, drainage, water, and cover in there to allow different things to be going on throughout the year, to ask people to come down and check out what's going on, creating lots of different reasons to come back. And then you can see there green roofs, focusing on energy efficiency, biodiversity, and the pontoon at the bottom of the screen for the water taxis to take people up and down the canal, and then re-emphasising the cycle route through the centre of the development as well, and providing bike storage, possibly electric bike charging as well for those of you that are like me who quickly run out of breath, and also private resident gardens, but actually lots of public space. So giving that space back to the public and allowing them to use it. So here's a rough idea of how it could look like. It's a bit of a sketch, still in evolution form at the moment, but just a bit of a rough feel as to how some of the architecture might look. And then above the listed warehouse, you can see here how we're going to create that pavilion style building, which is going to have double height loftiness to it, open area, so you kind of feel outdoors, but you're indoors, you're weather protected, because let's be honest, we are in the UK, so it isn't always the brightest. And at the minute, we're thinking that could perhaps be workspace, but it could be food and drink space. We're looking at the mix of that at the minute. We've obviously not gone to consultation yet either, so there's a lot to ask the public about, and let's see what they think. And we're throwing ideas out there at the moment, but you can see we want it to be a flexible space, with an industrial kind of vibe to it, and to feel like a continuation of the public realm as well. And the materials, there's drawing upon the heritage of the pottery as well, and using that as a way to ground the project in its local area. And you can see there, that's a level of the warehouse taken away, and you can see what exists beneath, all the beautiful brick columns and brick vaulted ceilings. And we want to reopen that up to the waterfront to allow people to get in and out. You can see some other previous projects or exemplary projects elsewhere where that's been used to great effect, which creates a really interesting space to either work or to go out for a food and drink. And again, bold staircases that traverse down from the Goods Yard level right the way down to the waterfront as well, that kind of entice you and make you want to go down and check out what's around the corner, celebrating the history of the space, bringing new natural light down into that existing warehouse, using different levels and layering as you work your way through to bring that natural light flooding into the space and creating a really dramatic effect, which you simply can't do with a new building. It's very hard to achieve. And there you go, there's a CGI of what it might look like. In fact, it's not a CGI, it's an architect's mock-up, so just gives you a general idea of the look and feel. And again, how it might look from the outside, looking back into the warehouse, enhancing the water, enhancing the pontoon, more planting and greenery, and a reason for people to hang out on that side of the canal. And then again, the final, I think, image is just showing the connectivity to the public transport and parking and so on, which is which makes such a compelling destination. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Tim. Tim again will be with us on our panel shortly, and I know I'm so pleased that Tim Capital and Centric are going to be here in Stoke-on-Trent, and I'm also incredibly proud that Stoke-on-Trent is going to be the first place outside the Northwest that Capital and Centric are coming to. It's really exciting, and I cannot wait for us to start on site. Final speaker today is a woman I go back quite a long way with, who's got a fantastic backstory, but an even bigger passion for our city. So without further ado, somebody I know that many of you will be familiar with, but she is always inspirational to hear. I'm going to hand over to the amazing Carol Shanahan.
Thanks, Abby. Now, unlike Abby and Mark, I'm not a Stokey. This is my confession to begin with. But unlike Tim, I have been here a bit longer. And Kevin, my husband, and I started Synectic Solutions in 1992, but in Newcastle. And I used to be a little bit sniffy about Stoke, and I used to be a bit, oh no, we're Newcastle actually. In fact, people thought that's what it was called. But in 2015, sorry, I get the dates right, we needed to move all of our staff for Synectics into one building. And the building that was found by my daughter Kate, who I've looked through the people on this call today, and she's there, so she could be the one to take the glory for this, really, is that she found the building on Hamel Road that used to be the Co-op supermarket and said to me, this is the best building for Synectics. And I was going, oh, where do I go to Burslem? Why do I go to Burslem? I didn't know Burslem, but I just didn't feel that it was the right thing. And she said, well, come and have a look, which I did. And she was absolutely right, as she often is. And I fell in love with the building on Hamel Road, but I also fell in love with Burslem. And that started this real love affair that I've got. And when we moved in 2016, the next year, it was really a little bit like marrying into a big family. And when you marry into a family and then suddenly getting to know that I'm married to Burslem, and that's one of 6 siblings. And there's a lot of rivalry between these siblings, but equally there's a lot of love between them too. That my partner Burslem really feels that it was the oldest and was always promised to inherit everything. And now that middle child, Hanley, the upstart, has now got to nick things. And equally, there's people down in Fenton and Longston saying, well, no, we were supposed to get it. So there's this wonderful family dynamic between the 6 towns, which I love. And this was really accentuated when the town was in its major sort of level of its identity a few decades ago, where it was, coal, potteries, pits, pots, and steel. And so you've got areas that had grown around their employment. People had moved into the city to find work, so you've got a lot of people coming down from the northeast because the pits were a lot more, there was a lot more jobs here than there were at that time. So you had a very stable population and a very clear identity. So there wasn't an issue about who Stoke was. It's the potteries, it's all pits and pots and steel. That is what we were. When that went, and I really regret that I didn't get over myself a bit earlier and come and really spend time in the 6 towns and get to know them when they were really bustling. you walk around Burslem and you can just feel the ghost of Burslem past. You can feel all of the workers coming out of the potteries and going into the old indoor market. And the architecture is fantastic. And I'm going to have to get Tim up there to come and have a look, because my goodness, you know, looking at what he's done in other areas, there's so much he can do in Burslem. So, but my love affair then moved on to next door to Port Vale, and you know that story's gone down in history, that I went to a match, fell in love, and you know I do keep falling in love. This is part of my issue, and so we went to Port Vale and really got involved in the community of the city, because it was very quick to see that the city needed help. It needed help to transition into this new part of it. You know, how is it going to build its new identity? Where, you know, there aren't any pits anymore. There isn't any steel. There is still the pottery industry, but it's nowhere near to the extent that it has been. So what replaces it? What becomes the new Stoke-on-Trent? And this is why I'm so excited about Powering Up, because that's what this is really helping to do, is to create the new identity of Stoke-on-Trent that we all sign into and say, yeah, this is what it's about. It's partly about employment, and that's, you know, the really important part. And, you know, I love the generation of jobs that's coming into the city. I think that's essential. But I was asked if I would chair with Liz Barnes from Staffs Uni, if we would chair the opportunity area. And this was an initiative, or is an initiative, from the Department of Education, where it was taking areas of cold spots for social mobility and saying, you know, if we give you some money and we give you some influence in there, you know, and we'll back you, would you go and see how you can help these 12 different areas? And I was so delighted to be able to do this. And I remember in one of the early meetings saying, they said, you know, what do you want to achieve? How will you know if you've been successful? And I remember saying, if we can get Stoke-on-Trent really talking to each other, then we will have done a great service for the city and for the country. Because if this becomes united as an area, if this group of people really start to listen to each other, start to talk to each other, then Stoke-on-Trent has something amazing to offer. And that's really what we began to do and what has happened. So we've now had meetings with the CEOs of all the multi-academy trusts, along with the council, along with the Regional Schools Commissioner's Office, and said, right, let's have a citywide view on subjects which are really important in education, like unauthorised absence, you know. So rather than having a disparate group of policies and plans, let's have one view of how this city is going to be. And this has happened again and again. And I then moved into the community side in the holidays of it started being called A Up Duck, and I still have this idea that I'm going to bring A Up Duck back, because that seems to have been dropped a bit. But for me, Stoke-on-Trent is oatcakes and A Up Duck. But that was really looking at working with schools, working in the school holidays with children and their families, of how we could make more of the holiday period, how we could give them access to food, to activities, to socialisation, to all of the things that, you know, many areas their kids take for granted. But in Stoke-on-Trent, it's not like that. And it isn't a Stoke-on-Trent issue, but it is a factor in that we now have areas of the city where deprivation is high, and so we need to be working with that. And you know, what Mark was just saying earlier gives you great hope that, you know, this is going to move, and that, you know, that there will be more jobs, that there will be, you know, more in the economy for Stoke-on-Trent, and so that we can build on that level of deprivation, we can lessen the level of deprivation and build it up. And we'll do that by taking the rivalry and making it a positive rivalry, between the 6 towns. I talk about the 2 football clubs. Now, I noticed today that Adrian Hurst is on this call, and he's from Stoke City Community Trust. And Adrian and I work together a lot on the opportunity area. We're both on the main board. But I mean, I'm sure he'll agree that whilst we're rivals on the pitch. Well, we're not yet, but Port Vale's working on it, and hopefully in a few years we will be in the league, who knows. But we're not rivals off the pitch, that we work together as two football clubs, but one city, one community. And that we will have partnerships in there where we'll take the strength of Stoke City, the strength of Port Vale, and we'll bring that together so that we can then be looking at the city as a whole and what can it do. And this has been recognised within the Football League in the way that we as a city are approaching the community through football. And recently Port Vale was awarded the Community Club of the Year for all 72 EFL clubs. And when the Sky came to film, he was saying, look, what you guys are doing in this city is phenomenal. It is so different to other cities. You have a unique approach to it. And I was saying, well, that's not just Port Vale, that's Stoke-on-Trent. And it's not by accident that we're the city of kindness, because you've only got to look at the people. You've only got to look at when you turn to the people of Stoke-on-Trent and say, look, we've got this issue, we need your help. They just come in their thousands to help. And last year, when the country went into lockdown and the COVID had come, there was fear throughout the country. We looked at Port Vale of saying, right, how do we bring everything together? So all of the Shanahan organisations, so Port Vale Foundation, Synectics, we came together and said, right, what can we do to help the city? And the first thing we will always do is say, where are the gaps? Where does the help need? So it's not necessarily what we want to give, it's what the community needs. Straight away, we started to work with the council. And whilst the council were trying to set it had to wait for central government to send the funds and everything else that it needed to set up the organisation to be looking after people, we said, well, look, there's a gap. We can step into that gap. So we have a very, very good relationship with the early help and intervention team. And then they would be contacting us and saying, right, this family needs help. And then we would just go off and give them the help that is needed. We would then, though, go to the community and say, look, we need help to help. And so we had food arriving, volunteers, offers, more offers than we could actually use in the end. And again, that really showed me that, I was right to marry into this family. It's a good family to be in, because when help was needed, it was there. And, I also have got close to the universities, but with Liz, with Staffs Uni, and also with Keele University, with working with the Institute of Social Inclusion. But what I've seen there is they are, again, two universities. They compete for students. They'd like the students that have gone to the other to come to them, which of course they would. That's how it should be. But outside of that, I have seen how much they work together for the city, for the area. So they're both on the left. They're both, coming into combined initiatives that they can work on to help the city as a whole. And I think, Abby said a lot of this early on, and you might have thought, well, hang on, they've copied each other's talk, because they're both saying about how wonderful we were as a city during the last year. We haven't, we're just of one mind, because we both witnessed it. We both witnessed what Stoke-on-Trent can do, is doing. I think it's so exciting to see the work that Tim is doing, and that area of the Goodyard. I have started doing a lot of walking during lockdown, and I walk along the canal. I actually walk to Port Vale whenever there's a home match, all along the canal, and it's phenomenal. It's an amazing city we've got. And I think, the city of culture, when we were going after that, somebody described it as a period of time where we fell in love with ourselves as a city. We spend so long saying, oh, this is wrong, that's wrong, whereas actually, when you look at it, I equated it to, it's like selling your house, and you have, what's wrong with the house. But then when you bring somebody in and you're showing them around it, and you're saying, look at this, there's an amazing view, and this is amazing, and this is great. And then you get to the end of it and you go, yeah, this really is amazing. Why am I selling this? This is fantastic. You straight away take it off the market. And that's how I felt that we went through as a community for the City of Culture. And we really began to see, you know, Jason Manford came and said, you know, you're all moaning, what is up with the city? And then came back and said, nothing, absolutely nothing is wrong with it. It is there, it is open for business. I think, you know, the work that we're doing and, you know, the partnerships that we're creating. I know the Hub Foundation is building partnerships with the council, which are really, really important to the city as a whole. So finally, my final plea, I haven't got posh slides and all the rest of it. I just wanted to talk from the heart to you, really. But my challenge to the city as a whole is to embrace the transition and the change that we're going through. You know, the plans for the transport, the education, the health and the productivity, all of that is, you know, they're the right areas that we should be focusing on. Get involved, everybody get involved in, you know, in a positive way. We've all got something to contribute, and let's build it. Let's come together, stay together. Let's work as partners. And let's take this city to where it can be and be the exemplar for other cities to look at and say, my goodness, how on earth did Stoke-on-Trent manage to do all that? I'm really excited. I'm so grateful to be here today and happy to answer any questions when we go on to questions. Thank you. And up the veil.
Thank you so much, Carol, for that. You know, really interesting and fascinating, and particularly from my point of view to hear about Synectics moving to the city and what a massive difference that has made for you and your business, and the massive difference actually that you have made for us here. So now we're moving on to questions, and we've got on our panel today Carol, who you just heard from, Tim from Capital and Centric, and also Mark from Ernst & Young. Now I've got one question already, but you're going to have to help me, folks. Come on, I need some more questions. First one though that was in the chat earlier is for Tim. Now, Tim, you know that we are incredibly proud of our ceramics here in the city. You referenced the fact that you were going to be using hopefully some local ceramics, but what sort of thing can we expect from Capital and Centric in terms of local supply chain?
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's exactly what we'll do. It'll be entirely. You know, we are not a building contractor, so we appoint a building contractor. And so what we do when we do that is we state that they have to have the same values that we have in terms of achieving energy efficient buildings, in terms of creating a positive social impact, and that would include things such as using a local supply chain, local workforce as well. And ensuring that as well that they pay a fair wage, you know, and they pay above minimum wage as well. So there's lots of different factors that determine it. But yeah, I think that's it's a great thing to do, and it's a relatively simple and straightforward thing to achieve. And actually, it's the most sensible thing to do, of course, because that talent and that skill set sits on the doorstep, and so it'd be bonkers not to tap into it. And it's a really good way of ensuring that, you know, that the investment that's going to take place there, which is in, you know, 50, 60, 70 million pounds worth of investment, stays in and around that in this city region. And that's essential, I think. And that's the cycle that you want to create and benefit from. And we are the beneficiaries of that ourselves. So it's yeah, so really excited to do that. And not just because it makes good financial sense, but I think it makes the right social sense, and also will make for a much better quality project as well.
Fantastic, thank you, Tim. So we look forward very much to seeing what happens on the site. Next question, I think, is for Mark. Mark, what do you think is the one thing that you'd want to see happen in the next 6 months or year in Stoke? And the answer can't include Stoke City Football Club.
Okay. Well, I was going to say it won't happen in 6 months, but the idea of a water taxi to the Bet365 is quite exciting for me. But, you know, I think, you know, I did talk about this this virtual investment, and I do think there's a window now as the economy recovers. So I think, you know, for us to put together a proposition and start engaging with businesses already in the UK about how we might get some of their activity to Stoke, particularly in some of the digital or fintech sectors, given where the city is. So I think that's, you know, something we could go about and probably engage with government as well. DIT, I think it's an idea they're interested in. So for me, that would be a real positive sort of marker on the journey, if you like.
I think there's a lot of excitement around the water taxi idea, Tim. Definitely, you know, we're all up for that. We've had a really good question from Steve at MPFT around how health can help to drive the ambition. But what would your message be in general to any sector out there that's not engaged with this? You know, how can they get involved with what we're doing? What we've heard about many things that you're involved with, but you know, what opportunities do you think are there out there?
Firstly, can I say that the water taxi could also go to Vale Park?
Yeah.
Get off at Middleport Pottery, walk up, it's beautiful. But yeah, I think that, you know, there is so much going on. There's within the city, and I mean, once you put yourself out there, and you know that you want to be involved, it's amazing how the opportunities come to you. But I think it's really important that whether you're an organisation or you're a person, that you choose very carefully the area that you go in, and it's one that really means something to you, because it will take you. I mean, I'm really keen on food, on children, on, you know, giving opportunities for social mobility. You know, I was given an honorary doctorate from Keele this week, which is amazing. I've got 1 O level and 2 honorary doctorates and nothing in between. So I'm the epitome of social mobility, really. And you know, to give other areas that same opportunity is important to me. So I've been putting myself out there to work in there. So that would be my advice, is that there is so much out there already, and ask around into your areas of interest or expertise. You'll soon get scooped up, I can promise you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to try and come in on that point as well, Abby. I suppose and I'm not entirely sure what MPFT do, for example, but in terms of health, in terms of, you know, I think for us, it's really important for us that our residents in our buildings have both, of course, mental health and physical health, and well-being is really important, because you know, that's what makes them want to stay there and be and live there, because that's, you know, because they're happy there as a result. So things that we can do and things that we have done elsewhere, and examples that we want to bring here to the Goods Yard is we integrate running tracks into the public realm, and we put we put QR codes in so that people can share their running tracks and experiences with other people, and share times, and you create almost a fun but competitive environment as well for people to do different links throughout the different running track loops. But again, and at the same time, we provide space for personal trainers as well to offer outdoor training experience, as well as a gym space as well, open to the public, not just private as well. And so they're all great for physical health, but for mental health, you know, green spaces as well, and private courtyard areas, and then public courtyard areas, busier spaces, but then quiet to contemplation spaces as well, connectivity to the waterfront, and encouraging cycling are all things that you can do relatively inexpensive, relatively light touch, but actually make a huge impact when you see how that means that people interact with each other and with their physical health.
Listening to Tim, I'm not sure I actually answered the question that was asked, because I think his answer was far better. But what I would say is that during the last year, I have for my own physical and mental health, have started walking. And as I just said, walking down the canal. When I do my one-to-ones, we now walk around Burslem Park, and we walk to Tunstall Park, and you know, the more you walk around the city, the more you realise, you know, how amazing the city is. So yeah, my advice for everybody is to get walking. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Right. Well, thank you all for your time today. If you could stay with us, Tim, Carol and Mark, you'd be very welcome. But I know that you're all really busy individuals, and I know we all want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.